Hello, everyone. I'm Jen Jones, Director of Target Accelerators Pipeline and Programming. And we have curated a great event for y'all today with an amazing panel of experts. We'll spend some time learning everything we can from them about Q4 readiness, and then we'll answer your questions live. I'm proud to introduce you to the Target Accelerators team. Each person you see here is incredibly dedicated to supporting and elevating emerging brand founders just like yourselves. And they drive everything behind the scenes that make events like this possible. Special shout out to Nina, Erica, Camille, and Suzanne online today for helping to bring this webinar to life. Another reason we do what we do is to drive joy. This is Target's purpose, to help all families discover the joy of everyday life. And then, of course, we have our Target Accelerators mission, which is to democratize access to retail by creating equitable access to Target's network, education, and resources with emerging entrepreneurs. Don't forget to check out our website at accelerators.target.com for more information. And with that, let's introduce our panelists for today. So first we have Ali Ball. Ali, would you come on camera and give us a wave? Ali is the founder and CEO of FoodBizBidWiz and the creator of Retail Ready, an online program that has provided strategic support, curated curriculum, and values-aligned community for over 3,000 producers of packaged products in the food industry. As a former grocery buyer turned wholesale consultant, Ali has helped thousands of emerging brands understand what it takes to get on shelf and have high sales once you're there. Find her on the website aliball.com or on FoodBizWiz, her award-winning podcast about wholesale strategy, which contains a library of 250 episodes. Next, we have Miguel Leal. Miguel is a Mexican-American food industry veteran who is currently co-founder and CEO of Somos Foods. He previously helped accelerate growth at Kind Snacks and Cholula Hot Sauce, where he served as EVP of Marketing and CMO respectively. Miguel was previously at Danone and Diamond Foods working on the Kettle brand. His food career began at PepsiCo's Frito-Lay, managing the Lay's potato chip category. Miguel moved to the United States to receive his MBA from the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania. Born and raised in Monterrey, Mexico, Miguel's favorite Mexican meal is home-cooked picadillo with rice and beans. And last but not least, Target's own Catherine Smith, Senior Divisional of Planning in our home seasonal category. Catherine's retail career has spanned more than 15 years across multiple discretionary and seasonal businesses. She's at her best when she's solving complex problems and balancing the art and science of merchandising. She influences cross-functional team members and co-creates bold strategies that deliver results. Catherine lives in Minneapolis with her husband, 2 kids, and a sprudeled dog. I hope you picked up some fun items from our Target Cuddle collab for your pup. Welcome to you all. Okay, let's get started with a kickoff question to each of you. What excites you about Q4, and why is it important brands think differently about Q4 versus any time of the year? We'll start with Ali, and then we'll move to Miguel and Catherine.
Sure. Thanks for having us. I'm excited to be here. So I get excited about Q4 because it has the potential to make or break your brand. It has the potential to really boost your revenue, your annual revenue, and that's really exciting. Who doesn't want high sales during the fourth quarter? So I'm going to provide the wholesale buyer perspective today, some of that. And so what I want brands to know is that we've got to understand this rhythm of retail. We have to know that wholesale buyers are heads down in turkeys and candy canes and stocking stuffers and holiday decor. So we have to approach them differently during Q4 with compassion and understanding of their capacity during this season. So that's what I'm excited about.
Thank you for having me. Well, Somos is a very young brand. We started the company 3 years ago. We were a Target Accelerator alumni from the class of 2022, and we are new to seasons. So what I get excited about is that it's the time of the year with the highest traffic. As a young brand, we get 1 shot a year to raise awareness and household penetration, especially at Target. And I'm going to give the point of view of the newbie. We just started going through the seasons at Target 2 years ago. We've made a lot of mistakes. We've also had some successes. And my objective is that you don't make the same mistakes that I made the last 2 years.
What excites me about Q4? Like Q4 is retail Super Bowl, and the time when I truly think the balance of art and science really shines the most, which resonates the most with me and gets me the most excited. It's when the heat is really on to meet consumers' needs and wants, to make it really easy and inspiring and usher the consumer through the various drive times of the holiday, of which I'm sure I'll go into more detail later, but decorating, entertaining, and ultimately that last push with gifting. Q4 of all quarters is the largest roller coaster. So I like to always tell myself and my team to buckle up and enjoy the ride.
I love that. Super Bowl. We all won our ring this season, right? Keep the mic, Catherine. We're going in, okay? So this is a three-part question. What is the consumer mindset this Q4? And how does this differ from prior years? And what are the biggest things founders should be on the lookout for?
Great questions. Let's go. All right, the consumer landscape, it's volatile. It has been for years now with varying drivers to that volatility. Consumer mindset, in my opinion, is very focused on price, and ultimately the desire to get a deal is still strong. The need to get things the way that the consumer wants when they want it is more important than ever. And with digital continuing to play a key role in channel strategies, but also stores are really important to spark that joy and discovery that is critical to winning the Super Bowl of Q4. This Q4, I think retailers have a unique opportunity to really, again, spark joy and ease like never before, especially when we consider this holiday has 5 fewer days between Thanksgiving and Christmas. So as the leader of seasons and as the leader of holiday, that is something that I have spent a lot of time on. Both myself and with my cross-functional team to think about how are we going to make it easy, how are we going to spark joy, and how are we going to push through the demand that we need to bring to life for the consumer. The consumer is going to feel the pinch post-Thanksgiving to really get it all done. So again, making it easy, giving them confidence in what they're purchasing and breaking through the noise across the industry will be really important. And I think the biggest things to be on the lookout for, in addition to all of that, newness and innovation, like make things exciting, get it front and center, make your experiences really impactful, focus on value. And then, especially in light of the past few days, like inventory flow and really ensuring that you are understanding what you have and inspecting what you expect with how that's coming to life.
I love that. So 5 fewer days, great point. Way more concentrated season this time around. And then I'm hearing excitement, value, and be in stock, critical enablers to success. Allie, coming to you. As you well know, the retail environment is more competitive than ever, especially during Q4. What are your tips to small businesses to stand out amongst a crowded field?
Yeah, so let me address this, really to those smaller brands who are selling in independent stores. Maybe they're in small chains. Maybe they're not a big box yet. Maybe they're not in Target yet. So my favorite thing for brands to do is to become a staff favorite now. What we want to do is touch the people who are literally stocking your product, literally unboxing you, literally merchandising you, and become their go-to product recommendation. There's nothing more powerful than just having a team of mini salespeople on the floor for you when you're not there. So we can do that through sending samples, showing up to a team meeting if there's still time for that, doing strategic demos and making sure that you're really connecting with the team when you're there. Maybe you're doing a delivery yourself and helping them stock the shelves, right? But really becoming someone that the team knows at the store level so that you're turning those folks into mini salespeople for you. So that really helps to stand out, especially, in those smaller stores where you can literally go in yourself. And then also making sure that you are warming up your audience now, so they are prepared to buy come holiday season. So building trust and being top of mind now. There's nothing worse than running a Black Friday promo and popping into somebody's inbox and they haven't heard from you all year long. And you're like, buy me, buy me, buy me. And that's the fastest way to get a whole bunch of unsubscribes. So we want to make sure that you're warming up your audience now. Geo-targeted ads. Maybe you're sending weekly newsletters. Maybe you're running, again, like strategic demos. Maybe you are doing social media pushes leading up to Black Friday, leading up to holiday season. So those are my two big ones: warming up your direct-to-consumer audience now, building trust, and then becoming a staff favorite.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, Catherine, I'm going to come back to you before I go to Miguel. So Miguel, get ready. So two-part question this time for you, Catherine. So for, dare I say, all mass retailers, holiday plans are really well in the works. Typically, when do most retailers start the planning process for holiday, and what are the general phases of strategy development?
Great question. And as someone who, again, has lived seasons, this still kind of staggers me. So typically, holiday planning starts like at least 12 months out. And we're building our strategic direction, inclusive of assortment direction, grounded in results, learnings, industry, consumer insights, a whole like wealth of knowledge. Then we move into execution, where we develop cross-functional plans to bring our strategies to life. So similar to what Ellie was talking about, promotional plans. We start to build some of those. What are the right levers that we want to be pulling at the right time? Again, leveraging that drive time mentality. How do we want to think about marketing and digital and social? How do we want to be thinking about our inventory flow and our placement plans of our inventory too, in order to bring our channel, both digital and store strategies to life, and think about experience from that lens? What do we want in-store experience to look like? How are we going to spark more joy and discovery? What do we want to be highlighting on digital, and how, again, is that going to be changing throughout the drive time mentality? And we continue to refine those, quite honestly, up until the event and even in the event. In event, while we are like riding that roller coaster, we're moving and grooving with results. We're also taking those real-time learnings and starting to pressure test the plans we already have in place for the upcoming year. Post-event, we quickly hindsight, again, across all of those various assets to really inform our following year adjustments and where we need to pivot and get our inventory placements in line. And then we start the whole cycle over again for the following year.
Okay, Catherine, so what you're saying, a lot goes into holiday planning, right?
Oh, yeah.
So based on all that, how should founders approach their own planning? Especially with it being, oh my God, early October, 10/3 right now. What do we need founders to do right now?
It's 10/3, but holiday is right around the corner. So right now, I would recommend that founders ensure that they're at the ready for this holiday. I use the term, and I'm probably going to say it 5 times more: inspect what you expect. Look at your demand expectations. Again, where do you expect that demand to come in? To use what Allie was saying too, like think about how you can get in touch with your consumer and start to engage them now. Get into their mindset so that you can really proof the demand expectations that you have, and then start to think about how that aligns with key peak weeks in your categories. Again, monitor that inventory flow, the supporting assets that you have. Use these early weeks to really read the tea leaves so that you know what you might need to focus on later in season, but also what do you need to start thinking differently about for the upcoming holiday season. So this is where, if you can't tell, I start to get a lot of energy. Seasons is my jam because you're living in the here and now, but you're also thinking now, next, future constantly. And so like really pushing yourself to be thinking in those 3 phases as early as now to make sure you're prepared in part of the season to think about what do you need to do differently now to hit your targets, but also how do you need to be thinking differently for the upcoming year?
So flexibility, you got to be ready to pivot. You got to be ready to move based on the results that you see. Love that.
Got it.
Miguel, coming over to you. What should a brand consider as they prepare strategies for Q4? Can you give us an idea about aspects like assortment, social media, marketing, partnerships?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. I think when you are preparing for Q4, you need to think both about supply and demand generation. And on the demand side, it is your fundamentals, especially as a young company. You need to have your assortment right, your merchandising right, your pricing right, and your shelving right. And then you move into marketing. In assortment, when you are a young company like Somos is, we've been in market for 3 years, you have to win with your winners. This is a time of the year that the proven items, the data you have, the ones with the highest repeat rate, the crowd favorites, those are the ones that you're going to put your best foot forward. Merchandising, you need to make sure that where you are in distribution, you are participating in the tactics that are going to give you the biggest visibility. With pricing, you need to be very careful with those pricing gaps. You need to analyze what kind of pricing environment and promotion you're going to be facing, and make sure that time of the year you err on the side of value. And finally, shelving. All of the stores are going to be crowding for people's attention. So you need to make sure if it's a secondary placement, if you're on the shelf, how do you bring attentions to your products? You get one shot at this a year. And for me, getting the specific rights is number one, and then getting the marketing right is number two. Then you go into your partnerships. In the case of Somos, it is influencers. We do a lot of recipes, but it's also partnering with other brands that are relevant this time of the year, and make sure you have 2 or 3 partnerships per week in all the weeks leading to the holiday. You want to make sure you are creating demand, but also that you have, all your fundamentals right at the store level.
So 2 or 3 partners a week. Tell us, like, what are some tactics that our founders could use to kind of start to build those plans?
Yeah, so we at Somos we make delicious, healthy, and convenient Mexican meals. So we're looking for 3 things. We're looking for recipe partners. People are going to be, having their kids back from school, also getting together with families. We focus a lot on appetizers, on things that are going to feed a big family that you can have on your pantry and you can have ready in minutes. We also will partner with other Mexican brands, so we are more powerful together. Some of them are bigger than us, so give us more exposure. Some of them, gives us the benefit of culturally appropriate brands to partner with Somos. And then last but not least, we go together with brands that are in our shelf. So who else in the category we can create a recipe together, so then it's easier to move traffic, understanding, our buyers' objective, which is to grow the household penetration for convenient meals.
So I'm hearing incredible intentionality with these brand partners and the timing of those. Also, I love what you just said, win with your winners. Like, this is the time to double down. I love that. Great information for our founders. Allie, coming over to you for a 2-part question this time. So what are your biggest tips for founders as they plan for the different moments across Q4? There's so many small and big moments in this 3-month time period, from the early season ramp up to the middle height of the season to postseason.
Yeah, I want to address a bit of the elephant in the room here and say that not all products are holiday related products. And I think it's really important to be honest with yourself now in October. I mean, gosh, 6 months ago, are you a holiday related product or not? And I see Catherine nodding along too. Not all products sell really well in Q4. And from a buyer perspective, I used to get really frustrated when non-holiday related products would pitch me leading up to the holidays, right? Like a cold brew coffee or kombucha or like new cereal brand is just not a holiday related product. So I think that that's one of the really important things that we need to assess right now. Are you holiday related or not? If you're not, it doesn't mean that you can't still plan and take advantage of increased sales. It just means your communication, both to the buyer and to the consumer, is going to change. You're not going to try to weasel your way into a holiday display with your gluten-free granola just because it's holiday season, right? So I really want our founders to think about, is it a stretch for me to pitch my product as a holiday related item? And if it's a stretch for me as the founder, it's going to be an even bigger stretch for the buyer, and it's going to be an even bigger stretch for the consumer. I'm actually really curious about Miguel's take on this too, and like how you position your product as, a fourth quarter staple, even when it's not, a stocking stuffer or not like a traditional holiday related product. So I think that's the biggest thing. First, like, just be honest with yourself about whether or not you're a holiday related product. And then Catherine touched on this, but if you are holiday related, it's knowing your key weeks, knowing when your product is going to be in the Super Bowl in the fourth quarter. So maybe, again, I come from the lens of food, but if you're a cranberry sauce, we know you're going to really ramp up in November. Come Thanksgiving, you're dead. right? Like we are not thinking about cranberry sauce in December. If, say, example, you are chocolate coins, right? You're really going to see that ramp up in early December. And again, we're not really thinking about you after that last night of Hanukkah. So making sure that you've got those key weeks mapped out on your calendar and that you know when, kind of backtrack from there, knowing the communication both to the buyer and to the consumer so that you're aligned with those dates.
I love, Allie, what you're saying. I would also offer, like, and I catch myself in this too. So often we think about Q4 as holiday.
Yeah.
There is a big resolution season and like a reset moment that also happens. And so, like, while Allie, just to like riff off of what you were saying, while you might not be shining bright in November and December, you might be able to think about how you can play a role in what does total well-being look like? What does a reset look like across personal, household, like whatever it might be? And there might still be a role for you to play, knowing like the importance of just well-being across the industry too.
Totally, Catherine. And I think that connects to the second part of your question, Jennifer, where we're going with this, right? About that entire life cycle of Q4. What we talk about in Retail Ready is this like the last chance week, the week after Thanksgiving, knowing that buyers have like they've gotten through like the big push of Thanksgiving. There's like a little bit of a reset and thinking about, okay, so like what happens come January? What are my like non-alcoholic brands? What are the like better for you brands? What are the like things that like January 1st, like heck, I'm working New Year's Eve, changing over my displays so that we wake up January 1 and we've got all the like better for you brands on the shelf. So really thinking about the next 120 days. And if you are not going hard on holiday related product, or it's a really like maybe a little too late for you to figure out where you fit into that like whole you theory that Catherine really astutely touched on, how can you prepare for January now? January is the time when buyers put the holidays in the rearview mirror and think about category reviews, annual planning, new product placements. We think about fancy food coming up, Expo West. We are then thinking about what are we putting on our shelves this year in 2025. So how can you use this holiday season to set up your sales strategy and your sales pitches so you're ready to roll the first week of January?
I love that. And I also love like there's so many places for different brands to play a role throughout the quarter. Even if they're not, maybe viable in November, they definitely could be in January. And this is all Q4. Miguel, any thoughts to what Ali, kind of discussed about really kind of knowing if you're holiday related or not and how you kind of use the holidays to pull in your categories?
Yeah, I love what Ali and Catherine said. So for us in Q4, we got three different things going on. So we have Hispanic Heritage Month in October, which is going to be our biggest month of sales of the year. Then we have holidays where most of our retailers and especially Target is going to get a great traffic, even though our aisle is not specifically holiday related in convenient meals. But on top of what was mentioned, which I fully agree with the reset and not the alcoholic beers and better for you, it's also a time where people go back to routine. So if you think, how consumers are thinking, they go all out and they are hosting people and then they are tired and then everything starts again. People are back to work, kids are back in school, all these routines become a part and we play in our category on the healthy place, but we also play on convenient meals. So this is the time, the 2 times a year when people are resetting their habits on convenience and meal prepping, that we are going to be able to get into someone's, 2 or 3 times a week meals that they are going to do. So there is just so much going on in Q4 for us and so important to be ready for it.
So thinking through where you can play throughout the entire life cycle of the season and also really connecting that to the guest mindset, which kind of goes back to the building trust and relationship with the consumer that we heard earlier. Love that discussion. Okay, Miguel, keep the mic. So next question's for you. How do you suggest founders think about strengthening their manufacturing capabilities and supply chain ahead of Q4?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about supply and demand, and we said on everything you need to do to get things right on the demand side. But I would argue that you cannot sell what you don't have in inventory or what you don't have in the shelf. So for me, it's even more important to plan. It's like the ticket to the game to get your supply right. And something I wish I'd had known as a small brand is to partner in that business with your buyer. I wish I had known what were the expectations in terms of numbers for that time of the year, what were the lifts that we were expecting on display, what were the velocity ramp up on a new item, and then don't be afraid to ask those questions. Your buyer is going to be very happy to not have you run out of stock. And then with that information, go all the way back to your supply chain. For Somos, it is starting with the farmers that grow our corn and grow our beans and our tomatoes and our salsa to make sure that we can procure the ingredients. It's with our cooks that make our product, but it's especially important to our manufacturers and our distributors. So you need to make sure, especially if you don't go direct with your customers, that your distributors have enough inventory to target that time of the year. And I cannot stress this enough. This is the time of the year that you want to air or keeping an additional 2 weeks of inventory, a safety stock, especially if you're going the first time around. So just making sure that you're going through every single piece 6 months before, 3 months before, distributor, manufacturers, growing, meeting with your merchant team, with the inventory planner on the team is your best friend for this time of the year. For me, I learned it the hard way, but you cannot sell what you didn't produce and have in stock at the right store at the right time.
So as Catherine mentioned, this season is a roller coaster. What if a founder finds themselves in a bind? Like things are not going right, product is not going to be there when you think. What would you suggest they do to course correct?
The first year that we were in operations, we totally missed. We didn't realize what were going to be the lift on displays. I don't mind sharing the numbers. We thought we were going to do 150% of lift, and I think we could have done 250 or 300. And the most important piece is be proactive. You never want the merchandising team to find out through the out of stocks report that you didn't have enough inventory. With enough time, and really the farthest out that you can give notice, the better. They can move things around. They can, take you out of a circle offer. They can take you out, from the in-store circular. They can, move pricing around or maybe take you out of a TPR situation. And proactive communication is even more important in the bad news than it is in the good news. And some of the best relationships that I've made with buyers is because we've made mistakes, but we've been proactively, aggressively, and we've come to the table with solutions. Again, it should never found it from the first time because of the scorecard. They should have known that in advance 2-3 weeks before. The best thing is not to have issues, but if you have issues, you can actually, become a better partner by addressing it than, waiting for the phone call back.
Yes, all of the things you just said, Miguel. Catherine, on your end, like chime in. A vendor is having problems. How would you want that communication to come? Tell us more details from your perspective.
I mean, Miguel hit on a lot of really good points, like proactive communication, giving me the landscape of what the problem is, what are the solutions that you're actively researching against, maybe even what have you already taken action on, where do you need help, and how can I be a thought partner for you throughout that is like the really down and dirty version of it, I think, and acknowledging that like things are always something's gonna go wrong. It's a highly like volatile time frame. It's retail. Like nothing is ever perfect. Things are always changing and evolving. Control what you can control. You can control the storytelling of the situation. You can control some of the actions and you can control how you're taking your partners, bringing them along early so that they can also, from my position, I can change and adjust my plans so that we're still creating a really strong experience for the consumer at the end of the day, where I won't be happy or satisfied, right, as a like retail owner, is if it's a surprise and we're ultimately creating a really poor experience, not only for your brand, but for like the larger brand as a whole. Knowing again the importance of just like the consumer being able to get what they want, how they want, when they want. So the more proactive we can be, the more we can problem solve together, get ahead of it, and preserve that experience and brand experience on both sides as best as possible.
So proactive communication is key. And I think, Catherine, what you said is awesome because it helps build trust with your retailer also, right? I love that. Okay, Catherine, my next question is for you. This might be the last one. Wow, this 30 minutes has flown by. How should founders think about their conversations with retailers ahead of, during, and post-holiday to maximize their growth? Like, what questions should they be asking?
I mean, again, we've talked on proactive communication. We've talked about like being really curious, understanding what are the merchant's priorities. How do you fit into that? Where do you not fit into that? How might you be able to provide more insights and education for the merchant too on what you're seeing across your own like industry landscape and the insights that you're getting against your brand? Like just that really open communication again in the planning, in the execution phase, and then in the event time frame of where do you see opportunities to be pivoting based off of the demand profiles that you're getting and where your consumer is responding. You all are the experts of your brand, right? So help like inform us too on how we can show up differently, again, both short term, midterm, and long term to really bring our joint plans to life. And again, like don't shy away from being curious and asking questions. It's the way that we all learn. Retail is constantly evolving. So if we aren't asking questions and we aren't approaching all of those conversations with a growth mindset, like I can continue to learn and know more and understand more, we're doing ourselves a disservice, ultimately for the consumer and the experience.
Growth mindset. Thank you for highlighting that, Catherine. Great way to end that segment. Okay, what a chat. Wow. Thank you, panel. So we're going to go to the Q&A. So founders, if you haven't already, please submit your questions in the Q&A box for our panel. But while we wait, I'd love to know from our panel, what will be in your Target cart this holiday season? No pressure. Extra points for small businesses. We'll go to Ali first, Miguel, and then Catherine.
I wasn't prepped for this. Okay, so what's going to be in my holiday cart? I think anything from Justina Blakeney's Opal House Jungalow line. I love her design. I love the colors. I'm thinking about my mom, basically. I'm like, that's what my mom's going to get for Christmas this year. Anything from the Opal House line.
Miguel,
Yeah,
what about you?
So we love to cook, my wife and I, especially together and try new recipes. And this year we're investing in a nice wooden cutting board for our kitchen. They have great sales at Target. I don't know how to pronounce this brand, but I've seen it in a lot of my friends' house. John Boos, Boos. And that's what we're going to get for both of us.
I am seasonal decor all the way. So you'll see me throwing a lot of new decor items into my cart, and my husband will just have to accept it. And my kids will be more than thrilled to go and run through the holiday assortment and pick out their ornaments for this year to add to their tree in their rooms.
Excellent. Okay. I'm giving you a question about websites and strategies here. So feel free, anyone jump in. The question is, how do I get more people to go to my website to subscribe with their email to be able to use for marketing, which could obviously be great for this holiday season, right? We talked about building trust, like keeping the consumer going. What do we think we should do here?
I can chime in with some Shopify stats, some things to think through when you debate direct to consumer versus wholesale strategies, and recognizing that Shopify says their average web store conversion in CPG is 2 to 3%. So that means for every 100 people, 100 unique visitors to your website, 2 or 3 people make a purchase. And so I don't know about you, but getting 100 people to my website every week is a push. It's a lot of work. It requires a lot of digital marketing strategy, usually requires a paid ad spend budget, and you got to know what you're doing there. And so one of the things, as you think about your websites or even social during this time of year, is how the heck are you going to get enough volume to your web store to make it worthwhile? So again, I think Miguel had great tips on partnering with larger brands who have a bigger audience, thinking about, again, hate this answer, but paid ad spend. How are you literally paying to play in this online space? And then making sure that when you are asking for an email address, right? Not even asking for a purchase, but asking for an email address, that you're giving something in return, right? So I think about like Somos, maybe you're giving like top 10 recipes that you can make in under 10 minutes. Drop your email address here for 10 recipes in under 10 minutes, or something that, is that value exchange rather than just want to stay up to date with Somos Foods? Put your email address here. Like there's no value exchange.
Just to complement the answer, I agree with everything that Ali said. And the two pieces that I would like to add from the founder side is, first of all, under $20. I think right now, the recipes is important, the time is important. Everybody's going to look for that, the rest back into routine. But one of my favorite pieces of the Target Accelerator program was talking pricing and promotion with the Target team. And as a young brand that we have 30% of distribution, being at the right price and with the right discount on the shelf is super important. And the mistake that I made at the beginning on my D2C channel, on our D2C channel at Somos, was look at how much money you're spending on content and how much money you're spending in distribution of that content. Like, why would I spend a lot of my marketing budget producing great content that no one is going to see? And I think the right number is 5-1. Definitely spend money on content, but spend 5 times more at distributing the content that organically you see that gets a lot of traction. And when someone explained that to me, I saw the consumer acquisition world in a completely different light.
Excellent. Thank you, Miguel. Okay, we've got another question more on the pre-planning side of seasonal. Catherine, I'd love to hear your opinion here. Are there any adjustments you would make to your product to look more appealing to buyers during the holiday season? So how should a brand or a founder come at that to be more appealing during this time for buyers?
First and foremost, newness and innovation really continues to resonate within seasons. It's an easy way for you to really break through if you're offering a different, new, exciting solution and result, whatever it might be. Another thing is to continue to think about, especially within the stores channel, how you support like discovery and that joy. Like we have tons of consumers that are walking through our stores, right? We talk about the amount of footsteps and traffic that we get. How are you getting them to notice and engage immediately with your product? Newness is going to jump out to them, but also thinking through packaging, thinking through the display, the shelf placement that you have too, thinking about your role throughout those drive times again, and how your display might change throughout that in order to bring it to life in a really different and interesting way. From a digital perspective, I think both Ali and Miguel talked about really amazing like tactics and assets to break through and to really think about how you stand out within more of that digital space. Everyone's on their phone all the time. And so how are you connecting? How are you breaking through? And how are you getting in front of them across both channel experiences?
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, this is one about shipping supply chain. So what challenges should we expect in shipping products this holiday season, and how can we proactively navigate? Miguel, you had talked a little bit about this. What other aspects would you contribute to that question?
I just go back and think, what did I wish I had known, during my first or second holiday season? One is I saw a lot of comments in the chat about who should you email. And I think as founders that are starting this company, we always want, to get a reply from the buyer. But typically the buying team is 5 or 6 people. And I don't think we spend enough time working with inventory planners or with assistant buyers. We always want like time with the buyer, and sometimes for Q4, everybody's gonna want time with the buyer. And as the small brand in the category, we're probably gonna get less time than the rest. So for me, that was number one. And then the second thing that was very important, I spent a lot of time understanding my manufacturing and supply chain capabilities. And I knew, for example, that my co-packer could do 100 of a unit. But I didn't realize that for Q4, I needed to manufacture in August, and that everybody was going to want line time in August. And for that particular manufacturer, maybe I was also one of the smallest brands. So in order to get more days of manufacturing, what I could bring to the table is a little bit better planning and maybe get that week of production in July. So I think when you're starting, just realizing that everybody's gonna want Q4 time for manufacturing, and what role do you play with that supplier, manufacturing partner, distributor, is very, very important. It's not the annual numbers that make sense, it's the bottleneck that goes through Q4 that is important.
Yes, thank you so much, Miguel. Okay, so here's another one. So most founders work on a fixed budget, right? How do you suggest founders think about maximizing their campaign and marketing budgets during this holiday season? There's only so much money to go around.
I'll start. When I did the Accelerator program and we had our finance, pricing, and promotion model, I don't remember the target person, but what was explained to me is that when you're starting and you only have 3 of 10 stores distribution, and you do an awareness campaign, every 7 out of 10 consumers that see your campaign are not gonna find you in stores because you don't have 100% distribution. And I think as founders, we want that billboard, we want that partnership on social media, we want this like sexy, spend money. But the most effective thing is to spend in the store that you are distributed. And I would argue that this year, we're seeing the best return on investment on pricing and promotion, giving value to the consumer on the shelf. Because like Catherine explained, this year is just different. People have value is the number one thing that they are looking for. So I would say that's where I am putting our money. And I think that's a really good rule of thumb, especially this Q4.
Value. Yes, absolutely. Ali and Catherine, any thoughts here?
Yeah, I'm happy to add to that. And Miguel, I completely agree with you. One of the things that we really preach is this understanding, it's the 80-20 rule. 80% of your sales will likely come from 20% of your accounts. And so often I hear founders say like, okay, so like what can we do to increase sales in our slow accounts? What can we do to like boost in our slow accounts? And I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. Let's look at our top accounts and double down on what's working there. So that's where I would spend my budget this holiday season. Like Miguel said, literally in the accounts that you're in and in your already top performing accounts. Like let's boost that. And then also just remember on the digital side of things, the fourth quarter is when big brands are spending the majority of their digital advertising budget. It's just much more expensive to run ads this season, and you are paying to play and you're competing with brands who have, $1 million advertising budgets. And so your dollar just doesn't go as far when you're doing, Facebook ads, Instagram ads, things like that.
I love everything that has been said. I would +1 to all of it. Double down on where your consumer is, where you know that they are, and how do you continue to find ways to further engage with them throughout the holiday season. Like, I think that's an amazing focus. And then also know as you think through those drive time mentalities, there might be one small period of time where you do want to go to that next level of engagement within your consumer because there's a wider aperture for growth during that time frame, or you might be able to capture a wider audience and learn something there. So while 90% focus is spent on those who love you the most, still think about that 10% and what's the right time to try to target them and get them into your web, so to speak.
Excellent. I love that conversation. We have a question kind of going back to what you were talking about, Allie, regarding like, are you holiday or not, right? So the question is really about how can a brand attract buyers for a product that's truly off season? What advice might you have?
I'm gonna give some tough love and say, like, why? Why do you need to land new accounts this season? As a buyer, we evaluate your performance when you land on shelf. The buyer is trusting that you are going to come in and help them meet their category goals. So if you spend all this energy just to like convince the buyer to put you on shelf, let's say in November, but then you just sit there, that buyer is disappointed, right? You're like, oh, shoot, like it was a waste of everybody's time and energy. So I would push back and say, like, how about you use this season to get your pitch and your sales strategy, your channel strategy, if you don't have that dialed in, really, really figured out, right? We call it like a right people, right channel philosophy. So what Catherine was saying, who's your target audience? Who loves your product? Who has the problem that you're solving? And where are they looking for your brand? And then how can you use the next 90 days? It's going to go by really fast to dial in your sales pitch, your templates, your follow-up sequence, your promotional plan, all of that. So you're ready to hit the ground running in Q1.
Use the time to strategize. That's what I'm hearing. Excellent.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like there's some relief to that too, where you're like, oh, just because everybody else is, heads down and going bananas during Q4 doesn't mean that I have to. I'll do what's working and I'll look ahead.
So we'll close with kind of one general question, which I think is a really good one in terms of like investment of trade shows. So they can be really expensive. Are they a good way to meet buyers in a way that's going to produce results? Miguel, can you start off? Like, have you had success with going to trade shows?
Yeah, we discussed this a lot, and I've gone to Expo West 15 of the last 17 years. So, happy to give my point of view on this. Only go to the show if you have appointments secured. My first rule of thumb is don't do a bad job in 8 or a mediocre job in 8 different trade shows. Save your money and crush one. Okay, you only get out of a trade show what you put in. We start planning our trade shows 6 months in advance. What are we gonna serve? Which products we're gonna be? What appointments we have? Every day, every trade show, we have a meeting at the end of the trade show to go through every account. Did we hit our KPIs? How are we feeling? Do we want to do this show next year? We are getting to the point that we are going to have to pivot from where we are because we are, very lucky that we're in every retailer that attends that trade show. So we are just feeding people from the industry at that point. We already have that relationship, but our first trade show was Expo West, and we were able to get 5,000 stores coming out of that trade show. So the return on investment was great. We had to give it our best go in the second year to kind of like beat that. But trade shows can be a really good return on investment, or they can also be a dog, just the worst return on investment that you have.
Catherine, Allie, anything from your perspective regarding trade shows?
Yeah, I'm happy to chime in. Miguel, 5,000 doors from Expo West is amazing. I'm like, let's talk more about that strategy at another date. Just to piggyback on that, it's do not go to a trade show if you cannot fulfill upon those accounts that you might open from the show, right? Like if you're an East Coast brand and you have no distribution on the West Coast, don't go to Expo West, right? It is just not worth it for you. The other thing too is realize that you can go as an attendee before you go as an exhibitor. And I think it can be really beneficial to go walk the floor. Maybe you're volunteering at someone else's booth in exchange for a badge. You get that experience behind the booth. You can see what captures your eye on the trade show floor. You can attend all the educational events that often come with the show that you can't do if you're stuck behind a booth. So I always recommend if you're thinking about a future show, go as an attendee before you go as an exhibitor if you have that luxury of time on your side.
That's great advice. Observe, right? And then figure out if it's going to be worthwhile. Excellent. Okay, Ali, Catherine, Miguel, thank you. Thank you for sharing your time, your expertise with us today. And founders, thank you so much for being here. Founders, if you haven't already, please fill out the supplier intake form to connect with us and keep us updated with your brand using the QR code. You will receive a post-event survey, and your feedback is so critical to what we do to ensure we have the content that really resonates with you all. And when you complete the survey, you'll be entered into a chance to win some really great prizes, one including a one-on-one mentorship with a member of our team. We'll also send a link to rewatch this webinar, and please be on the lookout for our free monthly resources and exclusive events curated just for you. Have a wonderful day.